Dad and Shaun Roughnotes.
Hi there.
Hi, Shaun.
Afternoon. I wasn't late, was I?
No, you weren't. I was late.
Oh, it was you. Right.
Just busy setting up here in the sunny garden.
Excellent. I like what you've done. Was that Norfolk jacket? Your Norfolk jacket, yeah?
No, it's actually
No.
it's actually a Cordings hopsack jacket. Haven't actually worn that much yet.
I think I'd seen it before.
I've got a parasol here, which is sort of changing direction with the wind and occasionally blowing over. Yeah, this is going to be good.
Yeah, it's the same here. It's really nice. I've come into, I was go outside, but I've come inside because it's certainly the weather's fantastic. It's really, really good. So, okay, so today, what are we talking about?
I thought today's chat could be about influences.
Okay.
Where did we pick up our sort of garment-related influences?
Sure. Okay.
And I know from our previous little chats that you picked them up at a much younger age than I did. So I thought you could kick this one off. Okay.
Yeah, I think I don't think that's unnatural for the UK. Certainly, I think we tend to, depending on sort of where you live, big town, small town, village, country, I think you would tend to pick up on these sort of things quite quickly. That was the norm, I think, when I was growing up in the 80s. Certainly, the first thing I suppose that I remember thinking about clothing was probably about 12 or 11 even, where I think I must have been going through a sort of period of growth that I think stopped then as well. But that my mother bought me a pair of Dr. Martens shoes for school rather than just the standard like Clarks or whatever, you know. And I remember a couple of the older kids sort of going, "Oh yeah, cool shoes," you know. And I think that sort of had some sort of influence on me where I thought, "Oh yeah, they are cool shoes, aren't they?" You know, because this would have been what, 82, 83 maybe. So sort of still at the sort of fag end of the mod revival stroke ska. Certainly in my town, which was quite a small town, was still very influential. So you still had a lot of people that were wearing, you know, like flight jackets. There was a big scooter scene at the time as well. So there was still that kind of mod thing where there was even, you know, sort of specific mod discos and that kind of thing. So you would kind of go along, and I think that kind of rubbed off on me quite early, that I could see, I never got wholly involved in it, but I could see that, you know, these guys had certain rules and certain guidelines that they stuck to influence what they're wearing. And I think that influenced me slightly, as in I was able personally to, when I would go to the shop, I would see things that I'd quite like, you know, so that would kind of influence me. So like narrower trousers, or we had a shop in Dundee that did like sort of specific mod clothing, you know. It was called Breeks, but they did this range of knitwear that was influenced by the Who, and it was like white with arrows, or like white with a red and blue stripe. And I remember saving up to buy this jumper that was like white with a red and blue. So I just thinking it was the bee's knees. So I'd only been maybe like 13 at that point, you know. So it you know, I think it did have quite an influence on me quite early on, that scene. So I would imagine in the cities, people would have maybe moved on from that by the 80s, whereas in small town it was still fairly, and the whole ska thing as well. So you know, like button-down shirts and cardigans and that early on I knew that was kind of smarter than just wearing a t-shirt. So you know, you would kind of make a bit of an effort and you know, get your mum to get you a couple of decent button-down shirts. Or there was a thing called Y cardigan that was probably going right over your head, where the Y cardigan came in a range of shades: burgundy, grey, blue, and it was like a sort of American college style thing with a Y on here and a stripe across, and like they were just like acrylic, these jumpers, everybody had one. And then, everybody had a cheap imitation Barracuda, Harrington as well, so there was these things that you kind of wore to fit in slightly, but I kind of liked them as well. So, and I didn't, as I say, I didn't go wholeheartedly into the sort of mod revival scene, but it was there, and it was always a kind of an influence, shall we say. But for me, certainly, and everyone around me, there wasn't many people that kind of, a few heavy metal fans and goths then that kind of went out on their own thing. A few people that did the kind of new romantic-y type baggy trousers and pointy shoes and white jackets and that kind of thing. So there was a wee element of that as well. But the norm was that kind of that mod revival thing that did influence me slightly.
I think it's interesting that even though growing up in a small town in Scotland,
yeah,
you clearly had so many more subcultures and influences than me growing up in a small town in the far north of Norway, past the Arctic Circle, where, and this is going to be hard for the young ones to sort of comprehend, there was no internet, there was no Instagram, there was very few outside influences apart from magazines, which you really didn't come across as a young person. Very limited television, really. There was just one channel for the entire Norway, and they weren't really sort of the hip and happening thing. So things changed when MTV arrived with the satellite televisions. But I can remember visiting England on holidays and seeing the sort of heavy metal guys with their cut-off Levi's denim jackets with the big Iron Maiden patches on the back. I think that really sort of put me off denim jackets because I still can't see myself wearing one. And I don't like Iron Maiden either. So
no, that's it. And they were always a bit filthy as well, weren't they? These jackets, they were always like covered.
Well, the wearers too really look well dodgy. So
they weren't very good. No, I think it's probably come later to you then than it did to me, but certainly. I think like when you say about magazines as well, I think by the time I was kind of 14, there was a magazine out called Blitz that was a kind of general lifestyle-y fashion type magazine, a little bit like Face, but perhaps less sort of music orientated than Face. And like 80% of it, I didn't really like. I read the articles, but I didn't really understand because it was kind of London-centric. It was very London-centric. But again, a lot of the fashion stuff, you were kind of like, initially you'd be looking at these shoots and going like, what the heck's that? Why is that guy wearing Dr. Martens and tracky bottoms, and that kind of thing. But you began to sort of interpret these looks to an extent, even at an early age, where you could take one or two, so you kind of understood what they were doing, whether you could take one or two elements out of it, or an overall style, and then make it your own, So I think going up to sort of 1986, where Arena magazine came out, and I think that again that was a quarterly magazine initially that was a fairly big influence on me as far as a lot of the fashion shoots and stuff went. I should interject here. There was a whole thing around football casuals as well that I'll kind of touch on later, and I think a lot of people kind of went for that without going for the kind of football related violence, and I feel that, and as I say, we can talk about this, but that's kind of been a thread all the way through what men wear in Britain to this point today, so going back to that, so like spending a bit more on trainers and thinking about what trainer brands that they're going to wear rather than just whatever your mum's bought you at that age, what kind of jeans, so it became sort of more label intensive at that point, where whether it was Lacoste or Tishini, certain labels would go through phases of a matter of months at a time, where they would be at the top of the heap. Whether it was, let's say, Sergio Tacchini for a while was seen as like the thing, and then it was like Gabici jumpers. There was even a trend for a while with people wearing Burberry trench coats and Burberry, deerstalker hats from Dunn&Co and stuff, umbrellas.
That was the whole one-upmanship part of it, why they were called dressers,
yes.
because there was a competing in having the fanciest, most expensive, rare clothing and all that.
Yeah. And I think like magazines and that I was reading didn't follow that at all. That wasn't like, it didn't seem mainstream. You read the occasional article in a newspaper, but this was all kind of done in groups, I think, amongst them. And I don't think it particularly interestingly, when I look back on photos now, there was about a year or so where I think it must have, I had this like thing about paisley patterned shirts where buttoned up to the neck, where I think that was a kind of casual thing under a kind of waffle jumper for a point, and corduroys. I got this thing about corduroys for a while as well, about wearing corduroys. So I suppose in a way, yeah, it did sort of to an extent start to influence me at that point as well. But it was kind of like I was reading about one sort of style, but doing this, and again, it was, I suppose a lot of that was perhaps peer pressure, because there was a lot of people I knew around me who were wearing that kind of look as well. So
I can't imagine you were ever one of the hooligans though, going out for your Saturday fight and all that.
No, not me at all. No, I didn't really sort of particularly follow the football. Then isn't what football. Football's a huge commercial enterprise now. It wasn't really as the way it was then in the 80s. It was just pack them into this terracing and let them fend for themselves as we found out. But so it wasn't really my sort of thing, but certainly the way that people dressed were. And then in about 87, 88, when I was say 16, 17, and I went to college up in Dundee, and I was exposed to a lot more people that had grown up in a bigger city, and were, the whole Buffalo look had kind of come to the fore about 87, 88, and that hugely just influenced me, and that completely sort of changed the way I sort of dressed. And again,
what are we talking garment-wise then?
Well, there was kind of basics where you would wear like Levi 501s that were worn in, fairly roomy 501s. You would wear like black roll necks under a black MA1 or a green MA1 jacket. That was the kind of staple. I mean, we were just kind of playing with it, but these things were the kind of real staples. You would wear your MA1 jacket, but with a shirt and a loud kind of 50s print tie, was the kind of thing as well. You would wear like big chunky docks with steel toe caps, that kind of thing as well. So it was kind of difficult to define, but there was a kind of urban sort of look to it that you could kind of get away with wearing now, and it would still look okay. And I think again, probably to this day, sort of has some kind of bearing on me caring about what I wear to an extent, and I think that sort of 2 or 3 years there had a sort of fairly big influence on what I wear. And those people that were around at the time will know sort of what I mean. I know it's difficult because you weren't there, but they will kind of have an idea of what the look was, and it was defined by a few sort of fashion shoots in again in Arena magazine around that time, with a chap called Ray Peeps, a stylist. He died very young, and he was originally from Dundee, which again we had this, Ray's one of ours, and And again, this kind of coincided with us with like going out raving, so like Acid House and whereas I never kind of dressed along the kind of baggy t-shirt.
You're skipping really fast through all the phases.
Yeah, but it felt fast, Nick. You know, it did honestly. Because I'm only talking about a period of maybe 7 or 8 years here, so it felt fast at the time. It felt as if you were moving sort of quickly forward through what influenced you. I've not even talked about where I used to start going to charity shops again when I was like 15, 16, picking up old suits and old suit jackets as well, because I liked the way they looked. And I used to really like the Beatles, and I still do, but you know, when I used to look at the photographs of them, and they just looked so cool when they were kind of off duty with their roll necks and their 3-button suits, and I wanted a piece of that. You know what? And the only place you could buy stuff like that of that style was charity shops. You know.
I did notice we got a question about what was the best jacket to wear while riding a motorbike, and I have to say that's a twofold answer, because if you want to look cool and vintage, you'd want a vintage Belstaff jacket or a Barber International. But if you want to be safety, wear a modern piece of motorbike.
Absolutely great question, because I mean certainly the modern motorcycle jackets are built in Kevlar and everything, aren't they? They're designed to you can skid off the road and stuff like that. So.
But it's interesting because you're skipping through the various sort of musical phases here, and living way up north in the Arctic regions. I mean, we'd see this stuff in The Face or Arena or whatever.
Yeah.
I remember seeing photos of the sort of young London guys with their immaculate hair and their MA1 jackets and stuff. We couldn't buy that stuff.
Right, okay.
And you couldn't really, I suppose you could mail order it back then, but that was hugely complicated. I mean, even paying for stuff. So you had the people in town who'd actually forked out the exorbitant price for plane tickets to London. And we did occasionally do that and stay in some hellhole in Bayswater with carpet in the shower and whatever. And then go shopping for stuff. But really, it just wasn't available. I mean, the clothes shops in town would have what was deemed the sort of official fashion that season.
Yeah. But to be honest with you, Nick, it wasn't widely available where I was either. I mean, if you walked into the sort of main shops at the time, there was a shop, obviously Burton's was the main kind of men's outfitter. You had a sort of slightly trendier version called Riggs, WRIYGTS. So again, you could buy sort of slightly better stuff in there, but to get like an MA1, you still had to go to a surplus shop. You know, so you still had to find a market or a surplus shop, and you kind of got to know the ones that would have this stuff. You know, if you wanted old Levi's and old 501s and that kind of thing, we used to have to come through here to Glasgow, where I live now, and go to a shop called Flip, which dealt in second-hand clothing on a massive scale, like American clothing. They're no longer on the go, but so we used to, you know, take a day trip to come through here on the train of 100 odd miles just to come buy like one or two things and then head back. So you kind of had to still know. Next was in its kind of ascendancy at that time as well, and you know, Next at the time, a lot of the clothes they sold were fantastic. You know, that they sold really nice, well made, especially in the late 80s, like really nice, well made, made in Britain. Somebody called there, you know, and you would go there for like your jumpers and that kind of thing, you know. So if you wanted like a decent black roll neck, you go to Next and maybe pay 20 quid, a wee bit more than normal, but you'd get something that would last you. Even Marks and Spencer at the time, you knew that they did like sort of fairly classic knitwear and stuff, so you knew you could go there if you wanted like a plain shirt or a plain jumper. You could go there and just kind of mix it up, you know. But yeah, so you had to kind of mix and match where you got things, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember from my teenage years, they were basically a new pair of jeans every year, probably a fresh pair of high top white Nike basket boots, and I think I had the same jacket for several years because I thought it was cool.
Yeah.
Of course, I was one of the guys into synth pop then, you know, Depeche Mode and all this.
Yeah.
But at least we have a hairstyle that looked pretty decent, based on magazine photos.
So what changed then? So what like for you then?
Well, my sort of whole career of being cool came to an end really in my early 20s when I became a father for the first time.
Right.
And that sort of just overnight changed my priorities quite dramatically.
Right.
And and then over the years I had another 3 kids and moved around a lot. And I don't know, so clothes actually didn't play a huge part in my life. Really, things weren't on the horizon. Didn't have that much cash to spend.
Yeah.
And that changed for me 11 years ago when I got divorced and sort of was freed up again.
Yeah, some money. I think the financial aspect of it is important as well, isn't it? Where, you know, how much sort of free money do you have to spend on clothing at the time, you know? So, but I think that's got to influence you a bit as well. But and I think access to the internet now, you can kind of see different clothes and different styles and stuff. But I kind of stuck with that until I think sort of early 20s, and then I too kind of just, I think I lost a bit of interest in it, where you were kind of busy, you were getting dressed to go to work, you know, you had a couple of pairs of jeans you could wear up the top. I kind of stuck with, I was kind of always known for wearing a jumper for some reason. It was like people would go out and wear a shirt, and I was kind of always this guy that was known for wearing jumpers. I had this thing about jumpers. Anyway, but yeah, I think I was less interested in it whilst I was in my 20s as well. I think it was of less importance to me. You know, other things became more crucial, and then I think it wasn't until I was maybe sort of 30 odd where I had a little bit more expendable income that I started to sort of maybe buy a few more clothes, and you know, you kind of get to sort of know certain styles that you see. And again, the sort of perhaps the whole Britpop sort of thing came around, whereas the music didn't interest me in the slightest. There was a kind of slight mod style revival of style at that point, 60s influence style again, that may then have influenced me, I think, again at that point. Whereas you could buy these like Levi's straight leg cords that, again, I used to wear them rather than jeans all the time. You know, I had a sort of white Levi denim jacket. I used to wear a white one and a brown cord one, and a blue one, and I used to wear them a lot as well. And I think at that point I could afford to buy labels that were a little bit more expensive, and stuff that I felt was going to last maybe a bit longer. This kind of leads us on to what we started with around this whole like sportswear kind of casual thing that I sort of in the very late 80s, early 90s, that a lot of men would start to wear at that point, and I've kind of stuck with that. So they've kind of stuck with what they were wearing in their sort of late teens, early 20s, whether it's Adidas Gazelle trainers or you know, Kagools, Parkas, that kind of look, which is kind of influenced by sort of which came Oasis and that kind of thing, and that seems to have stuck, doesn't it? That seems to have. I don't know whether I was maybe a bit old at that point.
Might well have been.
You know,
I never understood who liked Oasis, but
no,
you know, they're accounting for taste.
Yeah. I mean, and I think they seem to influence quite heavily the way people dress, but they've not. I think that's where a lot of people kind of that's the way I'm going to dress, and I'm just going to keep dressing like that, and that's fine. Yeah, I'm not saying that that's like a bad thing. It's something I've noticed where any sort of evolving, maybe the labels get a bit more expensive, so whatever, Parker, whatever you're going to buy, might be a little bit more expensive or a little bit more exclusive a brand for some people. You might have a lot more pairs of trainers, you might buy more expensive jeans, but the essential look and essentially what you wear is still the same. And I think there's enough places on the high street for people to keep that kind of look going. So whether it's sports shops or sort of more specialist men's retailers dealing kind of high-end sportswear, that kind of very much a high-end sportswear, which again influenced by the casual scene, but also with this sort of Oasis Britpop thing from about 20 odd years ago. And I think that seems to be what influences men a lot these days, that they can take from that, and they can, not that it's like easy to put together, but they can put through a few brands, and if they're wearing something that's obviously of that brand, then they've made that effort, so they bought something that isn't high street, it's a little bit smarter, and some of the prices of these items like Stone Island and stuff and CP Company, that at the very high end of it, you're saying, look, I bought this jacket that's 450 quid. Some people are buying it because of the technicalness of it, which was the original purpose, I believe, technical fabrics. But I think a lot of people now are wearing it to say, look, I'm wearing this jacket, there's my badge, it's cost me hundreds and hundreds of pounds,
Yeah.
So
is it even a good jacket if people don't know how much it cost? And how will they know if it doesn't have the big badge?
Well, this is it, so if you say, for instance, wear like your Serac parka, is it Serac one? The black one? Yeah, which, technically a very proficient item that is going to last you, the whole winter effectively, and great for cycling, for commuting. People going to know that it's a Serac jacket.
No logo. So, I tell you though, going back a bit to sort of when things evolved further, there were two items really stuck in my mind when I wanted to buy clothes again. Two items that had sort of made an impression on me early in life, and always sort of been there as something that someday I'll really get into that. One of them was a wax jacket. I mean, I was a kid when I first came across them, and I didn't know that it was a Barber or whatever, John Partridge. Yeah. It was always something I really wanted.
Yeah.
So I came to that later on in life.
Yeah.
And I always had this vision of a proper tweed jacket.
Right.
And the thing is, it took me a hell of a long time to find out that was actually Harris tweed.
Right, okay.
It was that thick, rough tweed I was after.
Yeah.
And I keep seeing these jackets around, and they sort of looked almost right, but it was just this sort of thin toy tweed.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it must be 11 years ago or so now that I first found a Harris tweed jacket, and I sort of, oh, it's Harris tweed, right?
That's what it is, yeah. Aye. So it's just having that knowledge to know what you were looking for, and even with that, it's about getting the right one, wasn't it? So certainly with wax jackets, you would probably start off, as I did, with one that I got for fishing, that was like 30 quid out of the catalogue or whatever, that wasn't Barber, but it might have been John Partridge, it might have been just a cheaper brand, but it did the job, as in it kept you dry in the rain, and it's not till later that you start to think, well, okay, so right, wax jackets, like, it's bound to be somebody that makes them that is a little bit better, or what's the best one? And Barber was always the name, obviously, that sprang.
That's especially true when you sort of move from needs-based shopping, buying something that you need to fulfill a requirement, and into the more, can we say, collectible shopping?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. So you get to think, right, okay, yeah, Barbara's like, that bit more expensive. However, it's the wax brand. So, and I think once you get that into your head, so once you know that, well, maybe perhaps a John Partridge one, but yeah, it might be okay and do the same job, I used to have a Mulberry one as well that was a lovely made coat, but it's not a Barber one,
You know the photos of Prince Charles in his very much repaired old wax jacket?
Yeah.
And whenever it comes up, there's people saying, "Oh, what a lovely barber he has," and all that. It's not actually a barber; it's a John Partridge.
Yeah, and I think they were as prominent for a while. It wasn't until Barber kind of like went global and really started pushing the marketing, which they always did do for an extent, But they'd always advertise, but generally just in like country magazines and that kind of thing. It wasn't until they got a bit bigger that people then started to kind of buy more of the. Now it's become such a, there's as we know, there's Instagram pages absolutely dedicated to, the wearing and the history behind Barber, and people have done a lot of research there.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a wormhole, isn't it? People disappear down this waxy wormhole. Excuse the language.
or rabbit hole.
Yeah, well,
I think it's normally a rabbit hole.
But I like them. They're nice. They're practical. They're warm in the winter if you need them. So I'm not knocking them. They are great things.
They're not the worst things. I have to admit though that when I got back into clothes again and started sort of doing research and stuff, I got into the forum world. This was early. Sort of they tend to refer to them as the hashtag menswear years, which I suppose was early social media years with Tumblr and Twitter and later on Instagram, I think.
And was that just to get information, or was that...
Well, it's a sort of double-edged sword, really, because there's a lot of information, but it's also something of an echo chamber. So you might join a forum and follow a thread on a certain brand or something, and it's really about people confirming the choices you want them to confirm you make.
Okay.
So you'll say, should I buy this? And you always have someone who says, oh yeah, that's great, brilliant. Yeah. Okay then. But it's pretty dangerous. I got out of that world many, many years ago.
See, I'd always imagined there would be the opposite, where it would be this kind of rule police around, you say, oh, shall I wear silver cufflinks after 10 a.m. on a Thursday before Labour Day or whatever, and people say, oh,
you will definitely find them as well. Definitely.
Yeah.
I could never really get into the whole rule thing. For one thing, I think most of the rules sound completely ridiculous. One of the first ones I rebelled against was when you do up your waistcoat, the rules say you always have to leave the bottom button undone, which to my mind just looks messy, and it's probably leaving your tummy a bit cold because it's open to the elements. So why the hell would you do that? Oh, because some guy who rode a horse once upon a time said that it must be so. Bollocks.
I mean, there are, like, I'm not, like, and it's, you call them rules. I'm not entirely rule phobic, shall we say. So I understand why some of them are there. So some of them is there because things will look better if you follow a certain set of guidelines, right? Generally around formal wear. So generally, it's not to do with casual wear. It's more formal wear, which I don't really know a lot about, and I don't. But so if you're wearing a suit, don't wear a shirt untucked under. I'm talking at that level where there's things that you think, well, okay.
I do follow the rule about not wearing a tartan shirt with my tux.
Right.
But then again, I don't have a tuxedo either, so it's never become a real big problem.
Likewise. I suppose a lot of that's about sort of trying to maybe blend in rather than I don't know. It's a wormhole, and it's for somebody else, I think. Rules,
Yeah. Maybe we should just sort of skip past that.
But so what were we on? We were on. So you're saying about, like, so for you went to these forums to try and sort of find out stuff?
That was really a case of actually sort of becoming familiar with what is out there,
right?
And what is a bit different. I mean, I guess I could sort of look what are the other guys on the train wearing this morning. Not very inspirational, really.
Right.
And at a certain point in life, sort of boy bands aren't going to provide you any inspiration.
So them, you looking at them and not getting inspiration, would that inspire you to then look at that a little bit further and dig a little bit deeper?
Yeah, and I think I also find it a bit hard to actually accept inspiration, maybe.
Okay.
I mean, I want to be the guy inventing stuff. I don't want to be the follower.
Yeah.
Which sounds incredibly arrogant, I know, but
no, it's totally understandable, you know. Okay, so that led you to then, because one thing you always do is a lot of research. You know, you tend to research brands.
I do like to dive a bit deep into stuff.
Yeah.
Which was really why I started the whole blog thing, because if I was going to be researching stuff, why did I also write about it so others could know about it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a lot of people know stuff already, but I mean, the blog has been a great thing. A lot of people have appreciated it. So I haven't been completely misguided in thinking it would be a good idea.
No. I mean, certainly, like it influenced me to the respect of worrying more about where your things are made and worrying more about the longevity of things. You know, a lot of the sort of brands that I call them brands. They're not really brands. They're like labels, that small labels that you advocate and buy, might be sort of out of my price range to the extent. And I think maybe I'm more discovering brands that perhaps everyone else knows about anyway, that, you know, by doing a bit of research I'm able to find out. But certainly it's influenced me to that extent where you know, about the provenance, as we talked about the other week, of stuff, about, you know, the where things, caring about where things are made and how long that's going to last you, which was always there with me to an extent, but it's certainly since starting reading your blog a few years ago, it's certainly given me a lot more insight into that, you know, a lot more insight, and that's definitely been an influence on myself, you know. Sure, yeah.
A lot of these things do become more interesting once you start delving into them, though. So the more information you have, the more interesting it becomes. And you want to sort of keep digging. Yeah.
It does. Yeah. I was always a case, or have been for the sort of last 20 odd years, where, you know, if I wanted to buy a certain type of shoe or a certain, I would have to then go and find out, like, who kind of makes the best one. So who's best at doing that? You know, is that out of my price range? Yes. Can I buy it second hand? You know, and going down that route. So, like, always try and find out with everything, you know, whether it's like t-shirt, who makes the best, who's classed as making the best t-shirts. You know,
I challenge you, Shaun, to find out who makes the best t-shirt. I'll even make it easier by saying who makes the best white t-shirt.
Oh,
you'll find so many opinions on that.
Really? See, that's you know, that's
you'll probably end up in Japan somewhere with the t-shirts costing 200 quid a pop.
Exactly, and you need a kind of limit. So even, you know, you could go onto Amazon and buy a pack of 5 Fruit of the Loom t-shirts for £20. Actually, they're all right. You know, they're fairly thick and fairly decent quality. But are they going to last you maybe more than a summer? You know, probably not. So then you're getting into the whole, like, do you want to keep buying stuff like that? You know,
the thing is, I mean, has a white t-shirt ever really lived its natural life without becoming stained by coffee or something?
Yeah,
beforehand?
yeah. And then you'll tend to, well, I do, and then it'll get put down to sort of evening casual wear, and then it'll get put down to like what I wear in bed, you know, and then it'll be cut up for dusters kind of thing after that. So I suppose in that way it's recycled. But using t-shirts as an example, so, you know, so if I wanted a pair of you know, casual trousers, who makes the best? You know, whose advice do I take on who makes the best? You know, as well. So you kind of do a little bit more research. This is where sometimes when you're buying second hand, where you go online and you see, oh, no one else has noticed yet that these are quite good second hand, you know, because the second hand market having different buying guidelines, that so it might not have been picked up yet that a certain brand makes good stuff and it's going for a bit cheaper second hand. So then that's where you can sort of dive in and buy as much as you can before everyone else notices. I'll give you Grenfell for an example. Used to be 10 a penny on eBay, cheapest chips. Now I don't know what, £600-700 for some of the coats, you know.
Oh, starting price.
Yeah, I mean, I sold one recently. I think I got about 8 times what I paid for it, you know, and I hadn't actually worn it, and it wasn't that nice a jacket. But yeah, so again, that I think, looking at influences, I think that sort of process that you've helped with, and I think you've probably helped a lot of others, where it's about just digging that little bit deeper and, you know, finding out what you can.
I see the wind's increasing here now, Shaun,
Yeah.
and I think our topic is sort of drifting away from its starting point.
Yeah.
So should we call it a day?
Yes. Okay. I will catch up maybe next week or whatever. Okay.
Yep. Okay.
All right.
Thanks.
Cool.
Shaun.
See you later.
Bye for now.
Bye. Bye.